Welcome, everyone, and happy birthday to everyone. Today is the 25th of Elul, which actually marks the first day of creation of heavens and earth, and the beginning of the 6 days of creation, because Rosh Hashanah is the day that Adam was created, man, which means that the 25th of Elul, retroactively, 5 days earlier, is the day of the creation of heavens and earth. So right now, technically, the whole world is, time and space, is 5,786 years old, but we don't change the calendar count until Rosh Hashanah, which is this coming Tuesday. All right. We hopefully are going to finish this Siman, this chapter that we're in, and we're going to try to do it. We're up to page Shin, Shin Chavtes, which would be 329, Yud Gimel on the right-hand column. All right, we're discussing various forms of nullifying, canceling Avodah Zarah, idols or what have you, and how that works. And again, what we're discussing is how this applies to Bnei Noach, to Noahides. So let us begin. Yud Gimel 13, right-hand column. Avodah Zarah v'chol mishamsheha, idolatry, and all of the things which go along with it, that serve it. Efshar levatlon, it is possible, legally, by Torah law, to cancel them, to nullify them and make them no longer forbidden. V'im bitlon, and if one did make them void, harein mutarim bahana, so then they are permitted for use. One can benefit from them if it was properly nullified and it's no longer accepted as an idol for worship, and it's no longer worshipped, then one can derive benefit from it. However, something which was offered up to Avodah Zarah, cannot be canceled or nullified. Ve'ena betela lo'olam, and is never void. Ketzad, how so? What does this mean? Avodah Zarah shel goyim. Let's say you have an idol which is owned by and worshipped by non-Jews. Shebitlu goyim, and then the non-Jews nullified it. They said, we no longer are accepting this, we're no longer worshiping it, and we are removing any idolatry from it. Before it comes into Jewish hands, before they sell it or give it to the Jew. So behold, the Jew may also derive benefit from it, and he can have it. Shenemar, and the way we know this law is derived from a verse in Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 22, that says, Psilei Eloikehem, the idols of their deities, of their gods, Tisrifun Ba'esh, you shall burn them in fire. End of quote. Kishibo liyodenu, when they come to our hands, meaning the Jews, ve'noyagin b'en alikus, and they are treating it and behaving with it in a way of a deity. That's when we, the Jews, have a mitzvah, commandment, and an obligation to destroy it, to burn it. Avul im bitlam, but if the non-Jews they canceled it, they nullified their belief and acceptance and worship to it, and now it's no longer a deity of theirs. Harein mutarin, so behold, they are permissible, and the Jew need not burn it or destroy it or get rid of it, but is actually permitted to derive benefit from it, whatever that may be, whether to sell it and make money or whatever else he can do. V'im la'avodah zarah atzma yesh bitul, So in that case, now logic, if the idol itself can be nullified, there is such a concept, as we just said. Kol shekain, how much more so? How much more so that one can nullify the accessories of the avodah zarah of the idol and its trimmings, meaning whatever else they do to beautify it. Let's say the rug, the carpet that they put in front of it in order to bow down to it, or the container that they put it in, or the pedestal that it goes on, whatever it may be. Aval, however, l'tikroi voiseha ein la bitul. Things which were offered up to it, that cannot be nullified. Lefishin Emar, because we have a verse from the book of Tehillim of Psalms, chapter 106, which says, Vayoichlu zivchei meisim. And they consumed, they ate the sacrifices of the dead. What does that mean? So we derive from that verse, Ma meis ein la bitul lo'olam, just as a corpse, a dead body cannot ever be nullified. It is what it is, and therefore it is considered impure, and it can make a Jew who comes in contact with it impure. And you can't say, well, I no longer consider it to be a human being or dead. That's ridiculous, and that doesn't work. A dead body is a dead body. So too, by virtue of the fact that the verse calls the sacrifices for idolatry as sacrifices of the dead, so too tikroives avodah zarah, the offerings to avodah zarah, ein la bitul lo'elam, could never be nullified. So it's stricter than the actual idol itself. V'hadi alfinon, and that which we derive, the yesh la avodah zarah bitul, that avodah zarah does have nullification. Hane mile, these words were said, la avodah zarah shel goy, very important. If the avodah zarah belonged to a Gentile, to a non-Jew, then that non-Jew can nullify it, declare it null and void, and then it truly is nullified, and then the Jew who gets it can derive benefit from it. Aval avodah zarah shel Yisrael, however, the avodah zarah belonging to a Jew, okay, if a Jew, heaven forbid, actually worshipped an idol that he owns, ein la bitul lo'elam, that can never be nullified. So when we said until now is only speaking about that the original owner is a non-Jew. And it cannot be nullified, lo Yisrael v'lo goy, not a Jew nor a non-Jew. No one can nullify avodah zarah that belonged to a Jew. Furthermore, even if the non-Jew had partnership ownership in it, it was owned by two people. A Jew owned part of it and a non-Jew. Together they're partners in ownership. Because a Jew owns part of it, it cannot be nullified. Ein bituloy moyel klum, the nullification does not help, does not work, does not mean anything at all. Ella, rather, asura bana lo'olam, it remains forbidden for benefit forever. V'chein, and likewise, l'sashmisheha v'noya shel avodah zarah shel Yisrael, also all of the various different accessories and ornaments or whatever is going along with the avodah zarah, if it's a Jews, they also cannot be nullified, and they are forever forbidden. Gamkin eilan bitul, they also have no nullification. V'chein, and likewise, and Yisrael yochel levatel avodah zarah shel goy. A Jew doesn't have the power to nullify an avodah zarah of a non-Jew. V'afilu b'rishus hagoy, even if it's in the possession of the non-Jew still. A Jew doesn't have the power to nullify a non-Jew's idol that is in the possession of that non-Jew. Furthermore, even if the non-Jewish owner of that idol gave the Jew permission, he says, you can nullify this. Doesn't work. The non-Jew has to nullify it. V'chein, and likewise, avodah zara shel goy, an avodah zara, an idol of a non-Jew. Mishabas liyad Yisrael v'zachaba. Once it came into the possession of a Jew, and he now has legal ownership of it, however, whether he bought it or however he got it, he now has legal ownership. And even if he did not acquire it for the sake of a deity or worship, now the non-Jew, the original owner who could have nullified it, can no longer do that because now it's in the possession of a Jew. So we're really strict about avodah zara that belongs to a Jew that cannot be nullified. Vim bitla, and if he did cancel it or nullify it, ein bituloi moyil klum, top of the next column, his nullification does not work at all. El asura b'hana lo'olam, rather it is forbidden to benefit from it in any way forever. So that's very clear. It's again a reminder that all of that we're studying now, basically what Rabbi Steif is doing over here. I forgot to mention at the very beginning that we're studying Sefer Mitzvot Hashem by Rabbi Yonasan Steif, and this is part 3, where he's dealing with Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach, and then we usually make sort of a disclaimer that what we're studying is how and when do the commandments that are Sheva Mitzvahs, but they're for the Jews, to what extent do all those rules and details apply to the Noahide? But what we just did now is very clear, and this is the way it is in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law, and this there's no discussion, and this we know clearly there's a clear distinction and difference between avodah zara owned by a Jew and avodah zara owned by a non-Jew, and basically we're much stricter in regarding the nullification. If it's owned by a Jew, it cannot be nullified. Owned by a non-Jew, it can. Yudalit 14. Keitzad hua bitul. We speak about nullification of an idol. How does that work? What exactly must one do in order to nullify it? Natal goy me asherah makel. If a non-Jew took from an asherah tree, which is a tree which is worshipped, he took a stick, a branch from that tree, hoyafilu ole echad litzarchoy, or even one leaf of that tree for his own personal use, not for a religious use, just for himself. Nispatla, that cancels that tree as being avodah zara. So it's quite simple. All right. So he just took a branch in order to use it as a walking stick, in order to scratch his back. He now canceled that entire tree because he would not do that if he truly believed and worshipped that tree. He took a leaf in order to use as tissue to blow his nose. That's it. Once he did that, that disrespect to this avodah zara tree cancels the tree from being avodah zara, and now one may derive benefit from it. V'chein, likewise, elile avodah zara, idols of idolatry, shekata reish ozna, that he removed, he chopped off the tip of its ear, or reish chaytma, or the tip of its nose, or reish etzba'a, or the tip of its finger, or shemiacha befaneha, or that he squashed in any way the face. Even though it's not missing anything, it's just like part of the face is a little bit indented or deformed, but there's not any substance that's actually missing. None of the whatever material it may be is missing. In all of those cases, being that it's an act of disrespect, that constitutes bittul, nullifying it, and now it's no longer avodah zara. And since it was done by a non-Jew to avodah zara of a non-Jew, the Jew may benefit from it, and of course the non-Jew may as well. Tesva 15. How about the following? Miacha, he squashed it, shaloi b'faneh, but not the face. V'loi chasra, and it's not missing anything. Oy rokak b'faneha, or he spat in front of it. V'hishtin b'faneha, or he urinated in front of it. Oy gerara, or he dragged it. Oy zorak b'asatzaya, or he took human excrement, or whatever, it doesn't have to be human. He took waste excrement and he threw it at it. Loy bitla. Although all of the above mentioned acts are disrespectful, they did not cancel it. That's not called nullifying it. Mechara, if he sold it, oy mishkina, or he gave it as security, like for a loan, as collateral. Hafilu l'tzeiref Yisrael, even if he gave it to a Jewish welder, loy bitla, that's also not considered nullification. V'yesh matirim b'tzeiref Yisrael, but there are those that say that if he gave it to a Jewish welder, that would be considered nullifying it. In other words, it's not just do any act of disrespect and that's bittul. There are specific things that have to be done in order for it to be considered nullification, not just any act of disrespect. Because what could be more disrespectful than spitting at it or any of those other things that we just described? Tes Zion 16. Hamoitzi shivrei elilim. Okay, this is taken straight out of the Jewish code of law. If someone finds broken pieces of an idol that was worshipped, hareilu asurim, behold, they are still forbidden for any benefit. Bahana, no benefit from it. Shema loy bitla hanachri, because we are concerned that perhaps the non-Jewish owner did not nullify it. Just because it's broken doesn't mean that he did it with the intention of nullifying it. Could be that it broke. We don't know what happened. So could be that it dropped accidentally or something, or we don't know. So therefore we have to be concerned that he did not do as we said above, where he nicked the tip of the ear or the nose or the finger, which would make it bittul. Here we don't know what happened, why it's broken. Yud Zayin 17. Yesh kama dvarim, there are a number of things that are forbidden for a Jew, that is, and then you can assume that maybe for Noahide as well. It's forbidden to sell to a non-Jewish or to an idolater, to someone who worships Avodah Zarah. Im hadvarim, if those items are miuchadim, are unique, lemin, for a type, mimini Avodah Zarah shaboisem akim, for the type of idol worship of that place, in that current location, if those items are specifically used for Avodah Zarah, it's forbidden to sell it to people that worship Avodah Zarah. V'asur limkar shaiva lebeis tiflusam. It is forbidden to sell wax, like beeswax, to their houses of worship, to their churches or whatever. Vatam shasul moichret, and the reason why you're not allowed to sell it, hainu mishum, the reason is the ben noach muzal avodah zarah, because after all, these non-Jews that are worshiping avodah zarah are sons of Noah, and they're not allowed to worship avodah zarah. It's not just for the Jew. This is the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. The Noachites can't worship avodah zarah, so a Jew can't sell them something which they may use for avodah zarah. V'amoichran. Now this is very important to note what he's saying here. The one selling it to them, oiver, is transgressing, mishum lifnei iver leisitein michshoil. The famous verse, which is a very, very general rule, and that is, you shall not place a stumbling block before the blind man. And that basically means that one cannot be the cause of someone else to sin.
So here he's just stating it. This is based on the Jewish code of law, stating it as a simple thing, because we've, in the past, we've discussed in other classes whether that concept even applies to a non-Jew, or for a Jew towards a non-Jew. And here we're stating, as a matter of fact, that of course it does. A Jew cannot be the cause or enable or assist a non-Jew to transgress. The Gamishum, and another problem, another prohibition, another transgression, that he's giving benefit to Avodah Zarah, which is forbidden, as we discussed above. So that means, for example, let's say, let's just say for argument's sake, that certain types of trees, certain types of pine trees or whatever it may be, in a certain time of year, are used, let's say, for Avodah Zarah. And a Jew sells all sorts of gardening things, including trees. He would not be allowed to sell those trees to people that worship it, even though the person didn't explicitly say that that's why he's buying it, and you're making an assumption, but that would be enough to forbid it to be sold to them. Or, for that matter, as the example that he gave, selling wax to a church or whatever it is, when you know that they're going to use it for their Avodah Zarah, would not be allowed. Top of the next page, Shin Lamed, 330. Kosav HaYireim. Okay, this is a famous early authority in halacha. Not to set a stumbling block in front of a blind person is a verse in Shmois, in the book of Exodus, in Parsha Mishpatim. It's around chapter 23 in Exodus, give or take. If someone could look it up real quickly, it's somewhere between 21 and 25 is where it says that you're not allowed to put a stumbling block, and it's quoted very often in the Talmud. It's used as a general rule. Usually we're talking about between one Jew and another Jew. But here we're using it that a Jew may not put a stumbling block in front of a non-Jew. Kasava Yereim. The Yereim writes as follows. Utzrichin Yisrael Hizoher, and the Jewish people need to be cautious. Shloilim Kurla Akum, not to sell to idolaters. Kol Shu Tzarech Avodah Zarah, anything that he needs for his Avodah Zarah, Ulisash Misheha, or for the accessories of it, Oy Lavedasa, or for its worship. Kigoin, for example, Gviyin, goblets, cups, Sheshoisin Bohen Yei Nesech, Lekoloin Avodah Zarah, where they drink forbidden wine as part of their Avodah Zarah service. So whether it's used as an actual libation, pouring it, or whether they're just using it, to make a toast or whatever, connected to the Avodah Zarah, so you can't sell them those cups. Umachtois, those would be like little shovels or pans, fire pans. Oy me'ilim, or any types of coats. Lekater, either they're using it because they want to bring an incense offering, oy la'ater bohen avodah zarah, or the coat would be used because they want to beautify their idol and they want to put on a coat. Did you find it, Bob? Looked like you were looking it up. Oh, okay.
Sorry. So it's Leviticus 19:14. 19:14. Correct. Parshas Kedoshim. Yes. Okay. In Parshas Kedoshim, Leviticus chapter 19. Thank you very much. Okay, I stand corrected. So, you wouldn't be allowed to sell them any of these things. Or anything that they're going to use, any types of pots that you know that they're going to use in their service. Tanan, it is stated in a Mishnah in the Talmud, in Tractate Avodah Zarah, 19b, it is forbidden to make jewelry, ornaments for Avodah Zarah, katlois, unazamim, v'tabais, all sorts of different things, whether it's necklaces, nose rings, finger rings, and that's what the Mishnah says. And then he adds in brackets, and there's no greater transgression of making it for them than selling it to them. That's of course called doing it for them. Ein boinin. Then the Mishnah continues and says, you're not allowed to participate and build with these idolaters. Bisilki v'gardum v'tztadio bima. These are all sorts of structures that are used for Avodah Zarah, buildings or platforms or anything like that, or stadiums. Kulon, Tare, all of these things are descriptions, kisois, of thrones, chairs, vitztabois, or large areas, shois in the kavod of Avodah Zarah, which are done for the honor, for the glorification of Avodah Zarah. And since assisting is considered serving, worshiping, it's forbidden. Atkan, up to here, is the quote from this sefer called Yereim. Now listen to this one. Yud Ches. I know we're going a little bit quickly, but I'm still hopeful that we'll be able to cover it and that we're not going too fast. 18. Goy ha'oise mishte. If a non-Jew is making a feast, a party, l'chupas b'noi oivitoi, for the marriage of his son, he's marrying off his son or daughter. Asur liYisrael lechol sham. A Jew may not eat, and obviously it's kosher food, otherwise we don't have to say that. We're talking about Avodah Zarah being the problem, not kosher, not the dietary law of whether it's kosher. A Jew may not eat there, even if he's eating his own food that he brought. Furthermore, the waiter, the butler there, is Jewish. So it's kosher food, or the Jew brought his own food, and the one serving over there is a Jew. Avol, however, imanachri, if the non-Jew, shoisa chupa, that's making this wedding, sheleach lebeis Yisrael, sends to the Jewish home, oifos chayim, oidagim, living fowl, like alive living chickens, or fish, mutar, then he's allowed to eat it. In other words, it's not because it came from the wedding of the non-Jew, but it's because it's at the wedding of the non-Jew. But if he sends it to the Jew and he knows there's nothing wrong with it, I mean, it's a live chicken. You know, let's say the part of what they do at the wedding is they take a live chicken and on the spot they kill it and then they cook it, and it can't get more fresh than that. So let's say he has this Jewish friend who, whatever he knows, is not going to be able to come and participate, but he still wants him somehow to participate in this feast of the wedding. So he sends him a live chicken. And now the Jew shechts it, ritually slaughters it,
properly, no problem. Now, it says over here, goy. It doesn't even say that he's oived avodah zara. So practically speaking, for a Jewish person, this could be an issue, which I don't think would apply to a Noahide unless it's a person who is worshiping avodah zara. But if a non-Jew is making a wedding, even if he's not worshiping avodah zara, I'm not 100% certain if he's a Noahide who is formally accepted upon himself the 7 mitzvahs, maybe it's different. But otherwise, just a stam goy, a regular non-Jew who's not known to be an idolater, he's making a wedding. And now he wants the Jew to attend. He's invited. It's his friend. Jew can't eat a thing there, according to this. Can't participate in eating. Doesn't say he can't go, but he can't eat anything. He can't even bring his own little baggie and eat there. Yutes 19. There are further things which the rabbis forbade. Rabbinically, they instituted that you shouldn't do it. And even though the prohibition has no, so to say, basis in the Torah, they decided they have the right to do that as safeguards, and it's not founded on Torah prohibition. They made these various decrees in order for the Jews to distance themselves, to make this clear boundary between the Jew and the non-Jew. Ad shelo yisarvu v'an Yisrael, to the extent so that to prevent that the Jewish people, that the Jew intermingles with the non-Jew, so he should not assimilate with them. And the real concern is, the real tragedy is that heaven forbid that there should be intermarriage. That's the real concern. So therefore, since it's a terrible, terrible sin for a Jew to marry a non-Jew, whether the Jew is the man marrying a non-Jewish woman or vice versa, whether it's a Jewish woman marrying a non-Jewish man, they are both a terrible, terrible sin. So to avoid that, they had to make certain safeguards. In order to avoid it, they made rules. Again, so that is the bottom line reason for a bunch of these rules that are completely rabbinic, completely made up, and the Jew has to adhere to them, but the reason is a very important reason, in order to avoid intermarriage. Ve'eluhain. So now he's going to list them. What are those things? Now, we don't make up our own rules, and we're not going to say, well, I feel we should make up some more rules. No, the rabbis made rules. Some people feel that there are too many. Some people feel there are not enough. That's irrelevant what you feel. These are the rules that the Jews have to stick to. And of course, the Noahide does not want to cause the Jew to transgress, so they have to also make sure that the Jew doesn't partake in what we're going to say now. Number 1. Asur lishtei simon b'mesiba shel goyim. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Now, because the reason is intermarriage, therefore, there's no doubt that all of the following things that we're going to say now apply even to a Noahide who is strictly adhering to the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. Still, a Jew would not allowed to do any of the following things, even though we're not afraid or concerned that it might lead him to Avodah Zarah. But again, that's not the concern. We're afraid of intermarriage. So a Jew is not allowed to drink. And when we say drink, that it means wine. Not allowed to drink with non-Jews in a non-Jewish party, like the wedding that we described. Anything else, if the host or sponsorship is a non-Jewish, or the organization is not Jewish, a Jew may not drink wine there. And even if it is cooked wine. Okay, so many of you know this cooked wine business, and I think I've mentioned it once before, at least, but let me remind everybody real quickly. For the sake of sacrificial usage, wine has to have a certain level, a standard of importance. Wine is considered the drink. So it's used offering it to Hashem. When we bring a sacrifice in the Beis HaMikdash, that's libation. Lahavdil, that's used also by Avodah Zarah. They use wine also as libation in religious. However, once the wine has become degraded, once the wine is no longer that quality of real good wine, it would never be fit to be used in religious services, whether it's in the Beis HaMikdash to Hashem or lahavdil, to be used by non-Jews. They would not use it. What makes the wine disqualified? So what can we do to it if it is boiled, if it is cooked? And the question is after, to what degree, but basically, if it's cooked wine, it's not totally ruined. And unless you're really a connoisseur of wine, or you're really into wines, you may not be able to tell the difference in taste. There in the kosher market, there are many really good wines, or so they say, that are quote unquote cooked, and they really taste good, they're really fancy, whatever. But anybody who's really into wine should be able to tell the difference. Now, because that's the whole point, because you're supposed to, quote unquote, ruin the wine. Again, you didn't really ruin it, but you degraded it. So if the wine is cooked, now by a non-Jew touching the wine, he will not contaminate it. It's still permissible for the Jew to drink it. But as long as the wine was not cooked, even though it's wine, it's kosher, it came from grapes. But if a non-Jew touched that wine, a Jew is not allowed to drink it. Okay. So now at this party of the non-Jews, a Jew may not drink wine there, even if the wine is cooked. Shein by mishum isur. Shein by shum isur. There's no prohibition against drinking kosher cooked wine, even if the non-Jew poured it and stuck his finger into it. But yet, because the party is a non-Jewish affair, then the Jew cannot drink wine there. And if the majority of the people at this party are Jewish, then it's permissible. That's that simple. V'chein, and likewise, asru sheichar shel goyim. They also forbid drinking other alcoholic beverages like beer of a non-Jew. But they only forbid it in the house of the non-Jew. And another condition has to be that they're actually in the setting where they've calling it like a beer party, like we're actually sitting down in order to drink, which probably, I'm guessing, that something like a sports game, like if you're watching the football game together, that would be considered that they're coming together to drink beer. It's not like, oh, we're coming for the game, but the beer is secondary. Coming together, part of that social scene of the game is drinking the beer. So even though it's kosher, but because it's in the home of the non-Jew, and because it is, so to say, a beer party. But the Jew is allowed to take a bottle of beer from that party home with him and then drink it at home. That's fine. The beer is kosher. But he can't drink it in the home of the non-Jew in that particular setting. And likewise, likewise, in the home of the non-Jew, if he's just drinking this beer in a by the way fashion, or as we said, not in this setting, it's not a party. He just offered him, a cold beer. That would also be fine. So wine is something that a Jew has to be really careful with. Another thing, the rabbis forbade Jews to eat bread of non-Jews. And likewise, they forbade cooked foods. Again, it's 100% kosher. The ingredients are kosher. But if it was cooked by a non-Jew, they also forbade that. I mean, there are a lot of details to all these things. Even in a situation where there's zero concern that there might be something non-kosher in it. No chance. Nonetheless, the fact that it was cooked by a non-Jew, or the bread was baked by a non-Jew, in all of the above mentioned things, the main reason is intermarriage. Because we don't want that the non-Jew should invite the Jew over for a meal, and therefore they will become too friendly in a particular way. A Jew is allowed to be friends with a non-Jew, but it can't be in a setting or in a way or the social situation which can lead to marriage. So they have to make borders. So if I want to be close friends with my non-Jewish neighbors, that's fine, as long as. And so one of the major things is a meal, eating, parties. Those are really things, especially in the Jewish religion. Like, there's a lot of jokes about that. Like, what's every Jewish holiday? It's basically all around food and different types of food, and we're always eating and all that. But, but all jokes aside, eating sets a certain type of intimate friendship and closeness. So therefore, they felt that if they, say that you can't have their wine, their bread, their cooked food, that's a safeguard. Top of the next column, Chaf, 20. And then the rabbis, they forbade some more things. Amru, they said, that a Jew is not allowed to be secluded, cannot be alone with an akum. So however you want to translate that, either a non-Jew, anyone, or an idolater. Because again, there is concern because you're enough, I don't want to say average, but there's enough of a concern that the non-Jew is a murderer or will not refrain from killing. And if a Jew so happened on the road to travel or to come or to walk near an akum, near an idolater, he should arrange for it, he should maneuver himself that the non-Jew should be to his side, not behind him. They're going up. For example, the Jew and the non-Jew are climbing up a mountain, or anything like that. The Jew should see to it to go up first. He should be in front. But nonetheless, but don't have the non-Jew right behind you. So now we switch to Nachri. And that the non-Jew should not be right behind him. But should be a little bit off to the side. So behind the Jew, but to the side. How about if they're going down the mountain? They're coming down the escalator. So the Jew should see to it that the non-Jew go ahead of him. And he should be behind him. And a Jew should never bend down right in front of the non-Jew to take anything, to pick up something. Hafilu b'mishar, even if you're on plain land, on straight land. Shelo yorutz gulgaltoi, so that he not crush his skull. If the non-Jew asks the Jew, where are you heading to? Where are you going? So if the Jew has to travel a distance of 1 parsa, so whatever, let's say 1 mile, he should tell him, I'm going 2 miles ahead. Tell him further than you're actually going. The Jew should always expand the border that he's going. Always tell him, exaggerates the amount of where you're going to go. We actually see this by Jacob and Esav. Nachris, a non-Jewish woman, should not be a midwife for a Jewish woman if they're alone, just in privacy, the two of them. Even if she is a professional. And likewise, she should not nurse the child of a Jewish woman. If there's no one else, or if there aren't other people, no, it's in privacy. And she should not give birth. She should not have the birth take place in the house, private house of the non-Jewish woman, even if there are other people in charge or over her. But in the home of the Jewish woman, and there are other women that are in charge, that are over this non-Jewish midwife, then it would be permissible for the non-Jewish midwife to deliver the baby and as well to nurse the baby. And likewise, if there's people constantly coming and going, or freely, or they can come and go, that's also permissible, which basically means hospitals are no problem, at least in the Western world. If someone has a disease or a wound of some sort which is endangering their lives, it is forbidden to get healed. It has to be that the non-Jewish doctor or professional physician or healthcare provider is a professional for many people, known publicly. And then it's okay. Why? Because we have a very strong concept that a professional would not ruin their reputation. So that also, this rule makes it like turns everything that we said until now, almost makes it almost irrelevant, because as long as it's a professional, so they will not risk. So therefore, they're not going to do any damage. All the things that we're afraid of, they're not going to kill the Jew or the Jewish child or the woman or the sick person, whatever it may be, because they want to have a reputation of being one who is good and has a high success rate. Likewise, it's forbidden to get a haircut from a non-Jew. Again, unless there's a lot of people there. So in a public a barber shop, no problem. So all of these things here is not because of intermarriage, but all of these is because we're concerned that they might kill the person. So again, in our situation nowadays, those would be extreme cases, but the norm is there's no concern. Again, if it's in the privacy of a non-Jew, it could still be a problem. For a Jew to go to a non-Jewish person's home for any of these things, that could still be a problem. But otherwise, in the hospital or in the, whatever, the clinic, or in the barber shop, whatever it may be, not a problem. We are running out of time. Chaf Aleph, 21. A Jewish woman is not allowed to be in seclusion with non-Jewish men, even if they are many. And even if their wives are with them, the non-Jewish wives are with the non-Jewish men. Because in general, the non-Jews are suspected of being immoral or promiscuous. A Jewish woman should not be the midwife for non-Jews because she is actually bringing a child, she's delivering a child for Avodah Zarah. So again, this seems to imply clearly that that's if the people are Avodah Zarah. But if the non-Jewish woman is a Noahide who strictly is keeping the 7 mitzvahs, that would be a different story because you're not delivering a child that's an idolater. Unless the non-Jewish woman who's delivering, who's giving birth, is known to the Jewish midwife, and if she doesn't assist her, there could be friction and anger, and that could lead to not good things. Then mutar, it's permissible, b'choil, not on Shabbos, because you can't break Shabbos to deliver a non-Jewish baby. Ubischar, and she has to get paid. She can't do it voluntarily. Avolei v'Shabbos, not permitted on Shabbos. Yisraeli is leisonik levenachris. A Jewish woman should not nurse the child of a non-Jewish woman, afilu b'schar, even for payment. Because she's giving this child life by nursing him. For this reason, it's also forbidden for a Jew to teach non-Jews, the children, a trade, to teach them a business. And again, the presumption is we're talking about now Avodah Zarah. So sometimes it gets a little bit slippery. When is it any non-Jew and when is it Avodah Zarah? So when it comes to the problems of intermarriage, then I think it's safe to say it doesn't make a difference. They could be the most observant, Noahide, it's still not allowed. But all these things where we're concerned that, they murder. Noahides don't do that. They categorically are not, we're not concerned that they're murderers because they accept upon themselves the 7 Noahide commandments, and one of them is not to murder. And likewise, we're not concerned that they are idolatrous, adulterous either, because they accepted upon themselves Sefer Mitzvot Bnei Noach. So there would be a difference. And furthermore, a Jew would not be allowed to give good advice to an idolater, even to do a mitzvah, as long as he's still a sinner, as long as he's still wicked, and he still worships Avodah Zarah. And Daniel was tested as a punishment because he gave good advice to Nebuchadnezzar. What did he tell him? He said, if you want to stay alive, you want to protect yourself, give charity. So he told him to do a good thing. But the problem was Nebuchadnezzar was wicked. He was an evil king. He was not a Noahide who was keeping the 7 mitzvahs. So therefore, don't give him good advice of how to, get merits. Let's just keep going. Chaf Beis 22. A Jew may not give a child to an idolater to teach him anything, whether it's studying from a book or a trade like hands-on carpentry or a mason or cobbler, whatever it may be. Because we're afraid that he's going to philosophically draw him to his heresy. Because remember, he's an akum, he's an idolater. Now a Jew giving a haircut to an idolater, a goy that worships Avodah Zarah. Once he reaches within distance of the width of 3 fingers to his hair. Well, he's giving a haircut to his part of the hair that they do in a certain style for Avodah Zarah. Because ruach from all sides, shoymeit yodoi. He's got to let go, and he cannot trim or cut that part. So you could give him a haircut. He just can't get within 3 fingers of the style of the priests or whatever. And likewise, the bald spots that the priests do, the Jew may not do that. The Jew cannot be the one to take the razor and give him that bald spot. It is permitted to get healed from an akum, from an idolatrous non-Jew, as long as it's not known that he mentions the name of his deity. But if it's known that part of the healing, he actually mixes in and he says the name of this deity or what have you on the medicine or whatever, or as he's performing the healing, also then it's not allowed. Even if the Jew knows that he will certainly die, if he doesn't take this medication or if he doesn't take this treatment, he will surely die. That's not allowed because the healer is using, in addition to whatever medication he's using or herbs he's using, he is involving Avodah Zarah, and Avodah Zarah is one of the 3 that a Jew is supposed to give up his life. V'imumin, and if he is categorically a heretic, even if he's known to be a professional, even if he just says certain types of whispers or things, you're not allowed to get healed from him, because we can be certain that he is mentioning the names of these various idols or gods or deity or whatever. All right, last 3 lines. All the things which one is not allowed to derive benefit from, they're burnt. So it would be permissible, anything which a Jew is not allowed to derive benefit from, but he has to burn it, whatever it may be, he can burn it, and then he's allowed to derive benefit from the ashes. The only exception is Avodah Zarah. It's so strict that even the ashes are forbidden for a Jew to derive benefit from it. I would say we should try to continue, but I know people have schedules. What do you people say?
I would be happy to continue a little bit long. Yeah.
Okay, if anybody has to leave, we understand, and you can hear it later. And I apologize because we do try to stick to the time and not go over. But because we're going to take a really long break for about a month, and I think we could finish this in a few minutes, let's go further with your perseverance. Chav Gimel 23, bottom of page Shin Lamed Aleph 331, right hand column. Okay, then this next part is from the very beginning of the tractate of Avodah Zarah, first page. Asru Chachamim, again, the rabbis forbade Lisa v'litain, to buy and sell Gimel Yomim Lifnei Eidehen, 3 days prior to the idolaters' festivals. Lahashilon, to lend things to them, v'lishel mehen, or to borrow from them. Lahalvoison, to lend them money, v'lilves mehen, or to borrow from them money. Lefoiron, to pay back a debt, v'lifra mehen, or to collect a debt from them. Okay, then we're going to skip the brackets. Middle of the left-hand column. New paragraph. It is forbidden, again, for the Jew, which we're understanding it to mean for the Noahide who's keeping the 7 mitzvahs as well, that he can't send this to the idolaters. You can send them a gift on the day of their festival. Mishum to Azil because the non-Jew, the idolater, is going to go and he praises his Avodah Zarah on his day. By Yisrael Oiver, and by doing so, the Jew is actually transgressing. Mishum leishama al picha. There's a verse that says that Avodah Zarah shall not even be heard on your mouth, meaning you can't be the cause of someone mentioning or saying or praying or anything to Avodah Zarah. So if the Jew or whoever gave this gift or whatever the token is to the non-Jew, you're causing them then to mention things for that. A city where they make a big marketplace, a big market day on the day of their festival. Vanochrim and the non-Jews, miskaptzim, gather, mikama mekoimis from a number of various places, v'oilchim l'sham, and they all gather together and they to this marketplace, lichvei delilim, in honor of the idols, in honor of these avodah zarah. Asur le'reach Yisrael, so it's forbidden for a Jewish guest, she'enoi dar b'seicha, that doesn't live in that city, likanis l'seicha, to go into that city during this period of time. If you don't live there, then you're not allowed to go in there. L'Rashi, according to Rashi, the main commentator, hatam mishum chashad. The reason is because people should not suspect that this person is also participating. V'yesh poiskim de svira lei, and then there are other codifiers who they maintain, they hold shebalicha atzmoi, that by the very going there, it's worse. Not just like Rashi says that it doesn't look right, but actually going, you are transgressing because you're doing what they do. Just going into that city during that time, if you're not a resident, is actually, whether or not you mean it, but it is showing honor and respect to the Avodah Zarah. How much more so that it is forbidden to ever, even if it's not their day of their festival or their celebration, but it's forbidden to go into the courtyard of their Avodah Zarah. Even if you just want to speak to one of them. And possibly, it might still be forbidden even if it's for communal affairs or to save a life. Because again, it doesn't look right, and it's Avodah Zarah related. But he's not saying that with definitely, because you're not worshiping Avodah Zarah and you're going to save a life. So why should So that may be different. Chaf Daled 24. Furthermore, there's a prohibition in the marketplace. Because over there they're receiving taxes. And what do they do with this money that they're collecting? It goes to for the Avodah Zarah. And therefore the Jew would not be allowed to buy or sell there, because either he is giving benefit or receiving benefit from Avodah Zarah. Chaf Hey 25. Everything that we said in the previous piece is only at that time, during that season, during those days when they're celebrating. During the olden days. But nowadays, this is a very, very strong allowance, what we're saying now. Nowadays, the goyim are not actual idolaters. Sheinam oivdim lakum. They are not worshipping Avodah Zarah. And furthermore, shanu shruyim beineim. We Jews are living amongst them. We don't have the luxury of deciding when and what to do business and so forth. And our main livelihood is from them. And we do business with them all the days of the year. We buy and sell. And if we would refuse on their festivals, so again, that would lead to animosity. And see, again, if it's Avodah Zarah, the Jew has to give up his life. So why are we suddenly concerned with business and making money, and it's our livelihood and animosity? Because all these things are only rabbinically forbidden. So they're not really Avodah Zarah. So the rabbis already permitted, and they said, if someone enters a city, and he found them rejoicing on their festive days, he should rejoice along with them. And likewise, stam yiridim shoisim bizman hazeh, the regular marketplaces or parades or whatever that they do nowadays, they're not really doing it for a religious purpose. It's about business. It's about buying and selling. And they don't give the money that they're taxing to Avodah Zarah. Rather, it goes personally to the priests. They eat and drink from it. They don't actually serve it to Avodah Zarah. Therefore, for all of these reasons, nowadays it is permitted lisa v'litanei mohem. So that which it says in the beginning of the tractate of Avodah Zarah is saying does not apply nowadays, and you're allowed to do business with them. And by going to these marketplaces, there's no problem. For neither reason. That we mentioned two reasons. It's not that it is going to be misunderstood and misconstrued, and it looks like no, and it's also not actually glorifying or honoring them. So this last piece is really telling us that, nowadays we don't have this as a problem, and we don't need to be so concerned, because the Goyim today, he didn't say in these words, but the idea is that many of them, they're just doing it as a social thing or customary thing. It's just because this is what their religion does, but they're not really into the religion part of it. So they're just doing it because that's what their predecessors did, even though the predecessors really meant it. All right, so that brings us to Siman Yud on page Shin Lamed Beis, and our next class is scheduled for about, is it 4 or 5 weeks from today? I think 4 weeks.
Simchas Torah is on the 15th of October. Would the 16th be doable?
Okay, and that's
after.
So the next day after Simchas Torah, let's schedule. Let's try.
Okay, for the 16th of October.
Yeah, so that is in 4 weeks, right?
Yeah. One.
Okay.
James had his hand up.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Rabbi Turn. Thank you. I think Rabbi Steif's quoting from Hulin chapter 10, where he's talking, that was thousands of years ago, but the Goyim, and I forget what term he uses, so forgive me. Please look at the text rather than I'm going to try and paraphrase. But he says the Goyim aren't actually full akum. They're not full idolaters because they don't really know what they're doing, and instead they do what's called the lies of their forefathers.
Right. That is correct. That's right. So how much more so, we could say that about
today. Yeah, like Charlie Kirk's of the world or something.
Yeah. All right. Wishing everybody all the best. Everybody, Ksiva v'chasima tova should be written, inscribed, and sealed for a good year with Mashiach now.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi.
Amen.
May you be written, inscribed, and sealed for a good year. Everyone.
Amen. Thank you.
Rabbi Turn.
Okay, everyone. See you guys in 4 weeks.
See
Thanks,
you in
Bob.
4 weeks. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Cheers, Paul.
Bye bye.
Thank you.